Okay. Welcome everybody. I think it's going to be quite noisy tonight because of the noise and the rain. But anyway, welcome. I'm Councillor Maggie Wehrmath. I'm Chair of the Community Services Committee. So thank you very much for coming out on a bleak and weary night. So thank you for coming and we welcome your participation. Councillors and officers are reminded of their commitment to the Security and Respect Pledge and to be mindful of this during tonight's meeting. Please be aware that the Council is videoing this meeting and this will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. I'd like to highlight a few key points of the meeting format. Please can I make sure that everyone has their phones turned off or onto silent. The fire escapes, this is where I do my EasyJet bit, are via the doors out of the chamber and down the external fire escape or the main entrance. In the event of a fire, the lift should not be used. The assembly point is outside the post office parcel office. And please remain seated unless you're invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are down the corridor you entered through. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. Public participation is limited to 4 minutes per person, and it must be in relation to an item of business on the agenda. And I, as Chair, will interject in order to enforce this. When the agenda for public participation is introduced, please raise your hand to show that you wish to speak. I will invite you to speak. And if you're comfortable standing, please do so that you can be heard across the room. You don't need to state your name when you start speaking if you do not wish to, but we do ask that you clearly state which agenda item you are speaking about. What can you do about this, or is it? Can you hear me all right? Yes. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting, wait until the end of an agenda item to limit distractions from other participants. Members of the public looking to leave the building will need to be escorted out by a council officer. If the meeting goes into confidential session, a short 2-minute break will be held in order to allow members of the public to leave. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible in order to let others follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order and I will then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they will be ejected from the meeting by resolution. And thank you for listening. On behalf of the Council, I thank everyone who's attending this Town Council meeting. Right, agenda item 1.
Yeah, no apologies.
No apologies. Okay. 2. Disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests, as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Do we have any disclosure of interest? Councillor Walraven.
Yes, Vice President of the Seaford Lifeguards, as there are mentioned during the agenda.
Anyone else? Okay. Right. Item 3. Public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and public council policy. We have had an email item here about cutting of grasslands and green issues, and we have answered that by email this afternoon. Are there any members of the public who would like to represent? Okay, lady on the right. Would you like to stand up?
Okay. I'm referring to agenda item 2, Old Cat Steps. This incredible valuable resource provides access to some of the UK's richest marine habitat. This is a fantastic natural reef teeming with sea life. This could be a huge educational resource for primary and secondary schools as well as university students. There needs to be access for this to happen. The rock pools are only realistically accessible at Hope Gap and not via the Kidney River. I also witnessed a large rescue operation this summer where medics used the closed steps to attend a critically injured person. Our questions to the chair are as follows. Number 1, has an expert been commissioned to identify what the issues and the solutions are? Number 2, how many times have the officers actually been meeting up with Natural England, and do Natural England have experience with the construction of the cliffside steps? Number 3, would it not be sensible to contact the National Trust and use their experience of freestanding steps which do not touch the cliff face, such as constructed at Birmingham? We are committed to ensure that access to Hope Gap is reinstated and that decisive action is taken by Seaford Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Gentleman with his hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. This is about agenda item 4.7. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee. I'm here not just as a concession tenant, but as a committed member of Seaford's community, advocating for a fair resolution to the challenges that have surrounded the newly refurbished Martello Cafe over the past several months. Since being awarded the cafe in early 2024, I have experienced some major challenges, including an increase in my tender application rent, a reduction in tender application tenure, major structural defects that make the space unsafe to open due to flooding, major structural drawbacks that limit the space, including power supply and internal setup. All of the above have had a major impact on my new startup business and its financial viability during the key seasonal months. I recently attended a meeting set up by Seaford Town Council's management team to discuss all of the above and a fair collaborative resolution. I attended in good faith, but was deeply disheartened.
Excuse me, Councillor Bardo, it's not on the agenda.
You said it was, which agenda item?
Item 4.7?
27.
4.7.
What page are we on, please?
I don't,
Chair?
yes, we don't have a 4.7.
Is it not? The concept about concessions?
We have 7.1 and 7.2 on page 8.
Oh, sorry, I don't have the agenda on me. I thought that was item 4.7.
We do have to have an agenda item that is relevant to today's agenda, otherwise we can't take it forward.
You were talking as agenda item about concessions.
Well, I was told that there was agenda item about concessions.
There is, but it's about Westview beaches. It's not about Martello Cafe.
And could I not address the Martello Cafe issues on today's meeting?
I'm afraid our rules say that if it's not on the agenda for specific discussion, I'm afraid we have to be fair but firm that we cannot talk about things if they're not actually on here, because it leads to confusion about the agenda items.
Okay, I understand.
I'm sure you're free to further your discussion with officers in the usual manner by email. So thank you for coming, but I'm afraid we can't pursue this because we have to follow our rules.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance. Was that? Another lady in the audience?
Yes, I'd like to speak about item 2 on the agenda, please, the Hope Gap steps. My name's Laura Gold.
Yes.
I'd just like to reiterate some of what the previous members talked about in the public, which is that Hope Gap Steps represents a doorway into the world of the beach for many, many children. I'm a local primary school teacher, but also was a parent of young children, and that was the only access to rock pools and the beach on our doorstep. We were down there many, many times, and then during lockdown, when we were first allowed out, we went down as a family when my children were more grown up, and the beach represented somewhere to picnic, to explore, to sit. It was extremely good for mental health being, and probably is for many, many local members of the public. While we were down there one day, there was an artist, a local artist, Tony Parsons, you may know him, and he was painting on his easel, and he often paints that view from Hope Gap towards the Seven Sisters. It's a really iconic view. If we shut the steps, that's gone, and as it has many other artists. And I'm sure many of the council remember there was a film, a Hollywood film, made at Hope Gap, called Hope Gap. It's an iconic location, just like Burling Gap. The fact that it doesn't have the same sort of access to it and has to go to a residential road to get there doesn't mean that it isn't used an awful lot by the members of the town. And it's a shame that there aren't more people here today. I think that some of the things that are going on with Hope Gap Steps and with Seaford Barn, I don't think the town people know enough about what's going on. I'm not sure the consultation has been thorough enough. I don't think there were many responses to some of the last public consultation about Seaford Barn. And I would like to see many, many more members of the public be made aware of the situation with Hope Gap Steps. I know that there are tensions re the wildlife there, which has been there for many, many hundreds, even thousands of years. There's a tension with looking after the wildlife there, but it has coexisted with people visiting the site for many, many hundreds of years. And if there are reductions in some of that wildlife, it's not due to people visiting the beach. It's due to other factors in the environment. We can protect, but we protect other places. We have wildlife on the Seaford Nature Reserve, but we don't stop visitors coming there, do we? And there's plenty of wildlife there. There was a nightingale there not that long ago. We still allow thousands of visitors to come and visit that part of our town. So we can coexist with wildlife. And I do recognise there are health and safety issues as well, but I don't think they're unsurmountable. They've managed at Burling Gap. People are allowed down onto the beach underneath cliffs, which may be precarious, but it's been allowed. So somebody must have done some sort of research into that, thorough research. So I hope that Seaford will protect an iconic part of its landscape and bear in mind the emergency access as well, and not close those steps. They've been there for many, and it would be a really sad thing for the town if they disappeared, and for the children of the town. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments from the public participation? No. I think we will pick these up as we go through the agenda. That's okay. Right. Okay, so item 4, projects and facilities update. Are you speaking to that, Sharon? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the update of some work that's been happening in the Projects and Facilities Department. The report was issued ahead of the meeting today. Is there any questions, any items that anyone would like to raise?
Martel changing places toilets. We've taken the key code off. It's now accessible by a radar key. Anyone can get a radar key on the internet, which makes it vulnerable to vandalism and theft. Can we consider changing it back to the way it was, so it's only severely disabled people that get to use it, please?
We have done some work with changing places, and it's unusual to have a key code on the front. There are some access issues for emergency services, and the completion of the admin and the form of how we determine who can and can't have access to the unit. So we have been advised to not have the access code, which we're trialling this at the moment through the winter season. see how things work.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think we recognise your concerns that you've raised, and we don't want damage to the changing places toilet either. The problem we've got is that the process that we had to go through was that we had to invite residents who wanted to use the toilet to explain how it was that they were disabled enough that they should get access to the changing places toilet. And that leads to lots of different issues around data protection and why we're holding that information, and who are we to judge whether that is bad, whether that is sufficiently disabled or not to access the toilet. And so the recommendation from the wider organisation was that we should move to a radar key only. But rather than doing it as a permanent measure, we decided that we'd tried it for a couple of months and then reviewed whether or not that's actually caused any damage to those toilets. And I think that's where we are at the moment. So it's not something which we've sort of entered into lightly, but there's a valid reason behind issues that might be caused if we continued as we were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, thanks very much for starting the discussion and the information relevant to our changing places toilet. I'm just wondering whether officers have come across any information from the Changing Places organisation or from the wider sort of region in terms of changing places toilets that there are. It strikes me that this probably isn't ideal for anybody having, I didn't realise the administrative and data protection burden that the council would face. I kind of assumed, I suppose, that Changing Places as the sort of central organisation who, manufactures, or maybe not manufactures, but sort of administers the whole thing, would have all this sorted. And I'm just wondering whether you've heard anything about whether there's sort of any kind of wider scheme that might be operating. I understand, the key code access, that can be tough, but I mean, the reality is that we've got lots of different properties and settings where the emergency services do get access via a key code or whatever it is in an emergency that they can enter places. So it's not a problem that the world is meeting for the first time. Just wondering if you've heard anything on that or that might sort of down the line.
Yeah, so we have spoken to Changing Places about what other owners of these facilities are doing. We have some larger councils which have the CPT located next door to a services building, which means there's somebody on site to provide an extra code or a fob key that they've installed instead of the access pad. We don't have the same resource to be able to offer that service, which resulted in us using the application forms, but obviously Steve's explained the problems that we've come across with doing that. They don't have any plans at the moment, CPT, to introduce a larger scheme, which has resulted in reverting back to radar key.
Thanks for that information.
Councillor Richard Honeyman.
Do you want to stand, Chair? If you want?
If you don't mind, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's just quite noisy. So.
Just regarding 6.2 Christmas budget, I know that was only last weekend. Will there be a fuller report coming to this particular committee or somewhere else, or you haven't had all the feedback yet from the various organisations? So that's the query. Thank you.
We're planning a debrief meeting with the partners that we work with this year. We are just trying to work our way through everybody's diaries to work out a date for December or January, and then we can report back to the committee.
Okay, Councillor Linnea Honeyman.
I wanted to raise about 8.2p, which is about the overgrowth at High and Over. I wondered if that's something that can regularly be looked at, because I remember I brought this up quite a few years ago with somebody who had access issues because of being in a wheelchair, couldn't see the view that they used to always remember, and obviously it's on here again about the overgrowth, so I don't know whether it's possible that this could be more of a regular routine maintenance, so the view is always kept there to be seen rather than when it gets too bad. Is there not a regular maintenance programme for that area? Okay, and I wondered if that's something that can come back about, that's a regular maintenance or something?
It's certainly something we can, look at whether we can add it as a regular thing.
Yeah, it's just something that always seems to come up every so many years.
Yeah, so at the moment it's not in the grounds maintenance contract.
Oh.
So it's always been sitting outside. We did used to have a smaller contract, and I think that was pre-COVID. So we have been working with obtaining some quotes so that we can look at reinstating a regular cut.
Because I remember going up with your predecessor and our health and safety chap to show what was the residents were complaining about. And the other thing obviously is about Hope Gap steps. Obviously residents had brought up queries about the Hope Gap steps and suggestions about National Trust expertise. So I wondered if we've got a rough, I know we've got here when it came up in May 2024, but if we've got more of an idea of when we might be able to get them open again. National Trust, have they been contacted? So just a few questions on Hope Gap, because obviously I've heard lots of people say how passionate they are about Hope Gap steps and people being back again.
Well, I put these together, so I just want to structure it for an official reply. So there's the general comment about how valued and iconic Hope Gap steps are in terms of access to that particular part of the rock cut platform and the marine life and everything that goes with that. The specific questions are about has an expert been commissioned? Have there been any meetings with Natural England, and if so, what's the upshot? Has there been any contact with the National Trust, because they have a different way of dealing with cliff erosion, and they have steps that deal less with being integral to the cliff itself. I think that probably covers them all. So would you like to start off with that? It's quite a list, so I thought I'd just refresh our memories.
So we have been working with Natural England, and we are waiting a response from an application that we put in to talk to them about what can and can't be delivered on the reserve itself. So if we were to take upon repairs, what would really be allowed to use on site, what vehicles we could take on site, because as part of the filming policy, which they worked with us, Natural England worked with us on, there are certain rules and regulations that we're not allowed to access certain areas of the nature reserve with vehicles, which for the works that we need to carry out, or would need to carry out for any repairs, we would need some large maintenance vehicles on that site at location for the items that we would need to work with. We are at the point that we need to re-chase our application with Natural England for a response, as that's been submitted now for a few weeks.
I think the issue is about it's a site of special scientific interest. And it was probably not like that when the steps were built nearly 50 years ago. So I think the thing is that there are a lot more mandatory authorities that have quite powerful influence on this. And we have to get our ducks in a row, as it were, or our seahorses in a line to make sure that the appropriate authorities are asked at the right time to make sure that the appropriate inquiries are made so that we don't waste money, but we don't waste time either, because we are aware of just how important Hope Gap steps are. But it's really access to the beach that I think is the issue, rather than the steps themselves. It's what options do we have? And we need to have an idea of what options we have, rather than just saying we need to repair what we've got. We need to know what's affordable and what is sustainable. So it's quite complex when you actually get into the details of this. So we are working with Natural England. Yes, Councillor Bristol.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up on this. I'm not quite sure how we're structuring this item, because normally we sort of go through. We normally sort of go through section by section, but of course it's a very large agenda item. I've got about 4 questions on the whole thing, so I don't want to sort of. Just wondering, with the Hope Gap steps, last time when we were in a meeting here in Community Services, we had, I believe, resolved to look at getting a structural survey on the steps, which is obviously a vital part of it, which hopefully you're progressing. Well, I haven't heard a particular mention of that tonight. Obviously, Natural England, as the body who gives us consent for whatever works, are very, very good to liaise with. But I'm unclear at the moment exactly what the problem is. I mean, we all know about the last few steps, but we've all seen some drone footage about a visually large crack part way down. But I'm unclear a little bit sort of how far we've progressed in diagnosing actually how serious that is and what type of remedy that would need if we were to pursue repair. Also, I'm wondering whether you're exploring access via the marine side as a marine operation rather than through the land side.
So once we've heard back from Natural England as to what is physically possible for us to use or have access to, we will need to look at the marine side as well, because I don't think everything will be able to come from the top. And with regards to looking at what works needs to be done, once we know what we can and can't do, we can then have some consultation with consultants to find out exactly what needs to take place and whether that is repair or whether that is something different on the side.
I'll just add to that. There is a significant cost to get a structural engineer there, which is public money, and we want to make sure that Natural England aren't going to say you can't drive anything over that chalk grassland before we get the structural engineer. Because if they say that, then we need to look at the whole project in a different way. So the view was that Natural England need to say to us what we can and can't do on that chalk grassland, which will enable the structural engineers to have a basis of the difference with Burton Gap, of course, is that there's a road and there's a gravel car park, so that vehicles don't need to drive across chalk grassland to get to it. But obviously, as a town council officers, we also recognise the importance of Hope Web steps and the access that they provide.
Any more comments, queries about any other parts of the agenda item?
Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
so I've got a few. So just rattling through, thank you very much for all the work that's been done in replacing the dog bins. I think by and large it's gone fairly smoothly. A few snagging issues, but that's to be expected. I know it happens at a really tricky time in terms of staff resource, so it's great. Originally we had spoken about a comms programme going out with the new bins so that people were aware that they're looking for something black and not something red, and sort of using it as a springboard to try and improve the general situation of dog fouling on our land. Just wondering on a little bit of an update with that. I know I've been in touch with the officer who's closest to this, who has been really great and responsive, but just in the last couple of weeks again I've had an approach from the Friends of Blatchington Pond, and I've also been by the pond myself with my dog, including yesterday, was it, or the day before, and the bin down there that remains, that isn't a new one, is very, very full a lot of the time. So I'm just wondering, will the new one be coming there? Because I noticed that there's a list of a few additional ones which are coming in. Could there be plans for a new bin there? And maybe we can talk to, is it LDC who are emptying our bin there, what they're finding, because just a little bit concerned obviously with that being an area that's for wildlife, and also with the winter weather upon us. To get to that bin now you have to go across what's quite a boggy bit of land, and it's not near the made up path where the previous bin was, which obviously is suitable for a much wider range of people. With various advantages. So that's one thing. The other thing I was going to ask is, the town council notice boards. I noticed that there's one down on East Street. Is that one being replaced, please? I can't listen to that. I think all my other points have actually been answered, so thank you.
With regard to the bin, I will double check about Blatchington Pond. We should have the few remaining snagging bins resolved by the end of next week, and then there was some comms to go out to support where everything is and what's been put in place with the communication side of that. The notice board at Blatchington Pond has been scheduled for repair. The two posts that are holding it, East Street, sorry, became rotten. So in the last bins that we had, it fell down. So that has been scheduled to be repaired and replaced.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we are asked to note the contents of the report. I have a proposal, please. Councillor Markwell, seconder, Councillor Rutland. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Well, thank you. Agenda item 5, to present the Town Council's project log as of December 2024. Sharon, thank you.
Thank you. So you've all seen the projects up before. It's something that's been going for just over a year now. We have been working with this log and updating projects that are upon here as we go through the year. There are certain things that are on hold on here at the moment due just to officer capacity or where things are with financial budgets and what we can't work on as things are happening. And where the urgency of the projects are with regards to start dates and officers' capacity. New projects are added to the list and they're left as open on that list as they come in. And is there anything that anybody would ask any questions about what's on the list?
Councillor Markwell.
Very much. My favourite subject is toilets. And on number 25, you've got a lease contract, toilet cleaning tender, and the cleaning contracts tender that was agreed in March 24. A bit further down, we've got Place Lane toilets on hold, and that was actually about LDC on cleaning and the asset adoption. I totally understand the asset adoption is a long-winded thing, but the cleaning, still very confused about toilets and cleaning. Some residents have been telling me only today that Place Lane toilets have been in a terrible mess for a while, and I'm just wondering again who's cleaning them and whether we did go through with adopting cleaning for some of the LDC ones, that we were now cleaning them all to get some sustainable, consistency, and if we are to look into Place Lane please, or if we're not, what's happening to Place Lane cleaning, because there is an unevenness about the cleanliness of toilets.
Place Lane is, sorry.
It's all right. No.
Thank you. Place Lane is looked after by LDC and is cleaned by LDC via a different company that STC are using. We clean our facilities at the moment twice a day in our winter schedule, and it reverts to 3 times a day in the summer schedule. LDC don't have that level of cleaning at Place Lane toilets. We do report incidences when we know of those, and they're reported to us, to the contacts that we have. And at the moment we haven't looked into working with them, taking anything on, adoption of anything, given the circumstances with resource.
Councillor Taylor.
Can I just ask about a couple of these? Starting with number 41. So, I don't think I know what a living bus shelter is, but I'm wondering, it's being offered to the town council from the county council. So, do we have any ideas yet when they're going to go? Living bus shelters sound as though they might be more user-friendly.
Sorry, I couldn't hear any of that.
A living bus shelter sounds so. I don't know what that term means, so first of all.
Yes, please.
So, in answer to the question, East Sussex County Council had some funding, which they offered some of that to Seaford to provide a number of what they call living bus shelters. as I understand it, this means that the roof is living in terms of plants and
It's that.
wildlife. And I haven't got a better explanation than that, but that's my understanding of what it means. The proposal that they put forward is, well, the three potential places they put forward are Cemetery Gates, Vale Road, Milberg Road, Walmer Road, and Chington Gardens, Eastbourne Road.
Could I just, I've got a couple more I want to ask about. I'm interested in bus shelters because being in Bishopstone ward, we've got bus shelters that are not, that are frequently vandalised. And we never seem to manage to sustain a rebuild to a very long period of time before it's not vandalised. Three or four are not vandalised again, 2 on each side. I was hoping that that might be some solution to a different kind of shelter problem. And it would be helpful to know who owns those bus shelters. Helpful to me to know who owns them.
Living ones.
No, the four at Bishopstone. Perhaps we could find out.
I think we might have to go and find, double check.
We could find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Bishopstone.
Yeah.
Finish, Betsy.
We have the one on Hall Hill side of the A259, and the other three, I think, is managed by private and local buses, or whoever they use. But we own the one at Hall Hill.
Thank you. I think there's just one more here. Sorry. Oh, that was it.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Councillor Honey.
Thank you. Madam Chair. Just following on what Councillor Taylor was saying, this did come up to, originally there was a full council early on this year, so it was an item there, and the previous town clerk was going to look into the living bus shelters to see how adaptable they were going to be. In fact, I did hear a discussion with Lewis Town Council doing something similar as well. But going back to the bus stop at top of Barn Rise in my ward, that's one of the ones Town Council actually manage, and they haven't, it hasn't been maintained for donkey's years. Again, I will have a conversation with the previous town clerk, but obviously the time that moved on. So I think that you'll find that we do run some bus shelters which are not in particularly very good condition. The one at Barn Rise has got quite rusted up in a lot of ways. I don't know how safe that is, or the last time that's actually been looked at. So I don't know if you could look into that one at Barn Rise and get back to me on that particular item. And look at what the previous item was, what Councillor Taylor mentioned earlier on in the year. That'd be good. Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question?
I did, yes. So about the bus shelters, we did vote on this, as Councillor Honeyman said. We voted against it because of the cost of fixing it due to vandalism. We've already heard that no sooner as one got fixed, it's vandalised again. And so officers were supposed to be coming back to us with a cost of repairing the vandalism, so we could see if it was within our budget to maintain them before we install them.
Councillor Bristow and then Councillor Taylor.
Thanks very much. I'm going to pick up on the bus shelters and then go to two other items so that I don't just speak 3 times. Thanks for the discussion so far, for the point Councillor DeVas. I'm not quite sure that matches exactly my recollection of that meeting because with the climate change perspective, as you know, I chair that committee, wanting to know whether we would have any influence on the design of the bus shelters that would be given to us, because at the time our understanding was that the county council would basically present us with a bus shelter that's there and ready to be used, and that we may not have any influence over, for example, the type of vegetation that's used, etc., which in Seaford would be quite important. So I would really welcome officers looking into where that is and giving us an update if you're able to tonight, and actually for this to come back to climate change, if it is likely to go ahead, to look at the finer details of the design so that we can consider that within the climate emergency policy. notwithstanding things like maintenance, which we obviously need to be community services. So if I work my way back, so there were two other things that I wanted to ask about. One is, forgotten, I can't see what number it is now, but Fields in Trust. Thank you very much, number 13. This is something which has been rambling on ever since before I was a councillor, and I would really, really like to see it move forward. I'd really like an update on it and perhaps a proposal to come to the next meeting if the timescales would fit, because I am concerned that it's quite stagnant at the moment. I think it's very important that we do protect or consider affording reasonable and proportionate protection to the green spaces that we do have, as we know they're very few and far between in Seaford compared to our population. And then going back to number 8, the Crouch Working Group, just like to have a bit of an update on how the interim town clerk envisages that we go forward with this, given that we're now in December and obviously previous word to use here happenings have meant that it's been delayed rather a lot, and I know that both the club and local residents and other stakeholders are very keen that we reach a conclusion. I'm aware that some of the specific issues, particularly the gates, have been quite troublesome recently, having encountered myself the Crouch completely padlocked up and inaccessible without anybody on the gates whatsoever on the 2nd of November, which I did pick up with the club, and they were very good and they rectified that on the day. But yeah, I'm just aware that it's obviously with the weather we're getting and the advertisements and hoardings that are still there, we're getting into that season where things can become problematic, so the sooner we can reach a resolution the better.
Do you want to pick on any of those points, or will you reply to those?
I've made a note of some of those to come back at other meetings and updates.
Councillor Honeyman and then Councillor Rutland.
Thank you, Councillor Bristow. I was going to bring up about Fields and Trust as well, because I've been concerned about how long that's been going on. The residents certainly approved the report up a long time ago. The other one, couple of here, number 31, which is provision for the new lifeguards post along promenade between Martello and Splash Point. Really do hope we get that sorted out sooner rather than later, because obviously it's really important and the lifeguards are really important to this town. And I'm still cross with myself that we missed, when we were doing the Martello toilets, we missed the fact that the lifeguard station room, cupboard, whatever you want to call it, had vanished. But it had been on previous plans and we missed it, so I still feel apologetic to the lifeguards on that, so I really hope that can be resolved soon about the lifeguard provision for huts. We've got number 43, which is about motorhome parking, which is a project to consider. So I'd be interested to see how that progresses, because that's something that obviously still keeps coming up. And I think that was the points that I just wanted to raise. And I'm glad Rainbow Bench is still on here, which I bring up every so often. So thank you very much.
Councillor Rutland.
Excuse me for not standing up. Just looking at number 21, High and Over maintenance ban. A few weeks ago, I was driving past High and Over, and a herd of goats from a local farm had escaped and were in the car park and eating the bushes because they got through their fence. And while this idea has just come to me, I'm afraid I hadn't thought about this earlier, but talking about we want to clear some of the excess growth and foliage there, it might be an idea to talk to the farmer, and they can move electric fences around and locate the, it's not a flock, it's a herd of goats, isn't it? Not a flock, it's a herd of goats. They can relocate their goats in various places around High and Over, and then we don't have to clear it because they'll eat it. And that might be a nice way of cooperating with the local community, local farmer, ecological, eco everything, etc. I don't know. The idea's just occurred to me. It might have legs. well, 4 legs on swans, I don't know, but perhaps, I don't know. It's a bit out there, but it's an idea.
Thank you. Novel idea. Okay. Councillor Markwell, did you have a
Yes,
comment?
just going back,
Thanks.
apologies Chair for not standing for the previous Scott. Yes, lifeguards, just to say, having some quite positive conversations with lifeguards actually, just bringing council home to date. There was a 2-year plan, we're into year 1 of a 2-year plan, but our absolute priority is to get lifeguards working and moving for 2025 spring. And I'm sure that will go forward. I've been personally speaking with people that are involved with the lifeguards, particularly the lifeguard himself recently, and there are some positive acknowledgements that we're all trying to work really well and collaboratively together to get a solution. But the solution will never come that quickly, but what we have agreed already, I think, is that it is ongoing, and you might want to move from the Mini to a Mercedes, but that will take time and raise money. But in the meantime, what we actually need is for a lifeguard hut station that will be fit for purpose for 2025, and that is exactly what we're working on and what we're probably going to get agreement for. So I think there are some positive, or will be some positive news soon. I'm working very closely with officers. Thank you to Sharon and Nettie.
Right. Councillor Nick.
Thanks very
Councillor
much.
Warren.
Chair, thank you. On the high and over, I was going to ask about this anyway because, interestingly, when in the last administration we were given a map with all Seaford Town Council's holdings on it, and I remember that very specifically at High and Over, it was just the car park that was registered as our holding. So I would question whether we actually own the footpaths around the top of High and Over at all anyway. The goats are conservation grazing goats, which are used over the whole of that area, and they're based at Frogfell Farm. And they do sometimes escape because goats just will escape. And if you'd noticed up High and Over, they cut back a huge amount of vegetation and they put in electric fence, and that was at the time, just after that was when the goats escaped. So probably, but there's electric fencing there. I mean, goats might crawl under a fence, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, it may be the National Trust that actually are responsible for those footpaths, because I haven't seen that on a map that we actually own that particular area. And I remember talking to somebody up there about it once, and they said, the Seaford Town Council should do something about this. And I said, we don't own this bit. And she maintained that we did. So I would love some verification, and I think we, as a council, need to know what we own and what we don't. If it's the whole of that area, which is the bit on the car park side that's within that curtilage, going up to the fences, maybe then it is our responsibility. But we need to know what is ours, because there's all sorts of dip areas there where the trees fall over, and I don't know who cuts those back when they fall over and you can't get down the footpaths. The other thing I wanted to say, please, was our open spaces, and I think it's item 78, the open spaces wilding and rewilding projects, which actually is to do with what Tina wrote us a letter about here, which is the agreed areas around the perimeters of the areas that we do own, like the Salts and the Crouch, where it was decided and identified that we would let things grow in the year and they wouldn't be cut back. Her contention is that when they were cut back very, very late in the year, but better later than too early, in November, the arisings weren't picked up. And I also, I know this isn't actually on the agenda, but it kind of links with this, is to do with how we cut our verges, now that we're responsible for the urban verges. And I would like, maybe, I don't know if we can get together with officers and also members of the community who know about these things in the wilding and you know, nature conservation areas, to identify when cuts should be, which areas should be cut, and how we deal with arisings if they, the cuttings that do come off, and whether that's IDVEDI are going to deal with that or not. It's very important if we're going to try and do wilding or nature conservation things in our town. Thank you very much.
Do you want to respond to that, Sharon?
Could I?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
So the verification of the land at High and Over, we'll get some mapping done and sent out to you all, so you will know what happens. When the trees fall over, we do clear them here at STC because people can't access the paths. So we have been looking after that work. With regards to the point 78 for the rewilding naturing areas. We have been working with Tina and her team and LDC and ID Verdi, and I think there has been some problems with the machinery that they were promised, and it hasn't been around, they haven't been able to access things, so they haven't been able to fulfil something that currently isn't in our contract. And obviously that contract's for renewal in 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Moore-Raven.
Just an update on the defibrillator at Bishopsdale. It has been purchased. We're just waiting for a concrete base.
Okay.
And probably we were hoping to have it done before Christmas, but I think it will be in the new year. Early in the new year. And I echo Councillor Olivia Huntington about the rainbow bench, because I mean that started in the last administration, and I think it's so sad that it's not progressed any further. Thank you.
Finished our comments? Right, I would just like to raise item 3 about Christmas magic, and I'd just like to send congratulations and thanks to the public, to Skip, who helped with the lanterns, and particularly the officers who worked very hard, and I think it's a very successful day. It really brought out the best of Seaford, so well done everybody, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So we are asked to note the contents of the report and the project log. Could I have a proposal, please? Councillor Rutland, a seconder, please. Councillor Moore-Raven. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, so it's 1957, and we've stopped the suspension, and we are now moving to agenda item 6, which is the community services income and expenditure up to the 31st of October. Are you talking to this, Lucy?
Yeah. So this report details the income and expenditure from the 1st of April to the 31st of October. Appendix A is a printout from our accounts, and Appendix B shows any significant variances. So I welcome any questions you may have.
Right, councillors, have any questions, comments for Lucy?
So if the budget, sorry.
Councillor Rutland.
The budget was exceeded by 101.9%. We only went 1.9% over. This is item 2.2, I'm just reading. So we were 1.9% over budget, is that right?
That's the income budget. So we've actually got more income than we actually budgeted for already.
Good, well done. And expenditure of 92%. Well done as well, brilliant.
Well, although
that's just for the period today.
Yeah, that's right, it's today, so
It's not for the year.
No. Well done so far.
So the right things.
if I can just explain why it's like 92% for the expenditure, it's because of the expenditure for the Martello toilet refurbishment. So that's been approved to come from the earmark reserve since. But the earmarked reserves do not form part of the income and expenditure. So although it's taking out from there, it makes the expenditure look more, but it does actually come out of the earmarked reserve. So if you took that out of the equation, it would actually be expenditure to date of 44.6%. So we're about where we should be.
Well done. Very responsible.
Councillor Bristol?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got 2 queries. I'll start off on page 32, cost centre, 130, 94410 swimming pool. So we've got a budget there of 10,000, of which nothing has been spent so far. I'm just wondering whether officers are aware that there is due to be any of that spent on the pool, because I know it's a multi-partner operation, if I call it that. So yeah, I'd like to know that. And then the other thing, which I did request, I think sort of informally in the previous community services, is that we have a breakdown of cost centre 106, line 1073, that's page 28, sports pitch hire and green fees into the actual constituent elements so that we can see what's coming in from which particular sports area at the Crouch. So whether I need to make that a formal amendment request or something, that would be really good. I know that there are other queries on about this, but I think at this moment in time it would be great to have some more transparency on that. Not historical stuff, just going forward so that we can really get hands on what's coming in from where, when. So those are my 2 points, thank you.
Lucy, would you like to answer that?
So the first point, the swimming pool, there are costs coming, so we've agreed cost, we have actually been invoiced for a couple of things that just show that they were going to be on the November accounts. So that is the cost coming for that. It won't be all spent. At the top of my head, I think it's about 4,000 that we'll be spending out, so there'll be 6,000 left for that.
Is it all right if I come back on that particular point, just to ask, do you know what that's for? Because I'm aware that there are some quite pressing issues at the pool. I don't know how it works with us as the town council, exactly how responsible we are for what, where. I know that the ladies' showers are in a dire state and have been for ages. Is that something we have influence over, or is that other parties?
Is that the end of your question?
Yes. Yeah. From what I know, there's been an agreement for the last 20 years that we put £10,000 a year in the pot for the pool, and it's split between Wave, East Sussex and us. And we get instructions from Wave themselves, or they work out what work may be needed, and then they come to us and the other 2 organisations, and then between us we agree that we will put the money towards whatever it is. So I'm not sure we get a say in the work, but we get advised of what work's needed. Sharon may want to just come in on this one.
I've asked to have a meeting with all the parties involved because I'd actually like to understand what we are involved in and how, because that is a long-standing agreement and there isn't any or much clarity on where we stand at Seaford Town Council. So yeah, I've asked for that and they are looking at dates with all of us to get us all back together.
Councillor Mark.
Oh,
sorry. We haven't finished. Sorry. Yeah.
Can I respond to
yes, please. Yes.
So you was asking about the split for the income on Appendix B. I have actually done the split within there. So I'm hoping, because I did have questions from Councillor de Bash as well on that. So I have tried to split it how you've asked for.
Thank you very much. I'll take a question.
Thanks for that clarification. That's very helpful.
That's page 35, is it? You're referring to?
Yes. So page 35.
Councillor Markwell. This is the last question, if you don't mind.
Should be my last question.
Please do.
Okay, number 4080, D-Day 80. So we spent, what I understand on page 33, top of the page, we spent 2,691, we had 10,000 in the kitty, which means we've got about 7,500 left. I was just wondering if that was, going to be earmarked for anything, because D-Day wasn't exactly what I would have liked to have seen, to be honest, with veterans and things. And I'm just wondering, given that we've got B coming up in May, whether we're using any of this budget to support anything else that will support veterans coming up. Because we brought this up for last community services, and I appreciate that we might not be planning quite yet, but things happen quite quickly. And I know that organisations like our veterans and others, I think Derek Council or Raven knows a lot about that, would actually benefit from knowing if we had plans or would like to work up some plans with us, if that budget is 7,500.
I don't know the plans for what the plan to do, but we can certainly think about earmarking that at the year end. Something we can definitely look into.
Thank you very much. It just seems a pity not to have it, because we kind of didn't really appreciate our veterans enough.
I think there, sorry, through the chair, I think there is a budget in next year's budget for VE Day as well, isn't it?
It's a lower budget.
A lower budget, but there is already some in the budget for next year. So one way or the other, there should be some money for it.
That's a beautiful budget.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any more questions, comments, suggestions? Councillor Dubber.
Yes, so you mentioned it's in Appendix B, so I did ask for a breakdown of the pitches so that we could see what Seaford Town Football Club are paying for their pitch, what the rugby club is paying for theirs. And I don't actually see it in the breakdown, sorry.
Page 35.
1073.
Oh, right, okay. So, 1073, it says football training and games 927, that's the football pitch.
That's right, yes.
Right, okay, thank you. So following on from that, when is there going to be a review of the higher pitch fees, please?
In the new year.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Do you have any more comments, anything you wanted to add? It's a very thorough report, but is there anything else you wanted to do?
So if any questions, that's fine.
Fine, thank you very much. Okay, then I'll move to proposals. So we're asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Meek, a seconder. Councillor Walraven, all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Oh. Sorry. What was your vote, Councillor Meek?
No.
No. Okay. No abstentions. Thank you. Right. Moving on to agenda item 7, draft budget report. Also Lucy. Thank you.
Okay, so this report presents the draft budget for this committee for 25-26. As detailed within the report, the proposed budget for the 25-26 sees an increase in £45,905. This would, at the moment, if this is before other committees have finished their budgets, we're seeing an £8.75 per year increase in the council tax. Variances can be seen within the report, detailed in there, and if there's any questions on this, I'd welcome them. But actually what I would just say, thinking about it, we're talking about dog bins earlier. Within the budget, the dog bin prices have been based on prices before we had the reductions this year. So we should see a saving this year of almost £4,000 off the top of my head. So the budget will actually be slightly less next year. So there will be a slight lower, there will be a slight amendment to the dog bin amounts in the budget. Any other questions?
When you say 75, is that per council tax?
Well, you have a comment or a question?
Per council tax bill per property?
Yes, per fee.
£8.75
per
per
year.
year.
Again, that will change, but that's what it is at the moment.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? Councillor Bristow?
Actually, would you mind if Councillor Warren go first? I need to just check.
Okay. Councillor Warren.
I just want some clarification on the print, because I think it was either earlier this year, it was missed off on our assets, and I raised it with our previous town clerk, and he said that it wasn't signed over to us. Has there been any more investigations on that? Because if it hasn't, why are we paying for maintenance for it? Well, I think it has, but...
We can come back on that, Sharon.
Yes, please. Please do, yeah.
I believe it's wrapped up in the assets that we took over from LDC, and one of the ones that hasn't been registered properly. So according to the land registry, it looks like it's not ours, but it is ours.
Because I was on the working group when it was discussed about LDC handing it over to us with payment, and so I was quite surprised at the time that it wasn't one of our assets.
I believe there's been some discussion in the last few months about seeing if we can hand it back to LDC, but we think that that's unfeasible. We have a sitting tenant and it's our asset, so we believe that it is our asset and it's going to remain our asset.
I'm quite happy then. Thank you.
Can I add?
Yes, please do, because I do remember there was quite a lot of confusion because we were told that we were paying a peppercorn rent to LDC, so it added to the confusion this year. So if you have any further comments, I'd like
I was
Please do.
fortunate enough to share an office with our temporary strategic projects officer, who is kind of expert of land ownership and leases today. And so the crypt is actually split into two. So we own kind of the gallery part of the crypt and the undercroft that has been transferred to us, but the front office, it's called 23 Church Street, but kind of the front building we lease from LDC on a 60-year lease till I think it's 2069. But it does mean that we're responsible. The lease is for repairing, so it does mean we're responsible.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. It's not easy, is it? Okay. Sorry, have I missed anybody? Was anyone else wanting to ask that? Councillor Bristol.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got two things. The first one is a query on the hire charges, the proposed table on page 57. If I've been very remiss in missing it, please do point it out, but I can't see the hire charge for the Crouch Gardens Eastfield football area. And in relation to that, I am starting to become minded about whether we actually need to think about the way in which we hire it out, i.e. it isn't just given without any support staff. For example, when you hire things sometimes from the district council, you have to have support staff there to ensure that all the rules and regs are complied with. Given that the safety issues around the Crouch, I'm starting to wonder whether that's perhaps a model we might need to move to. So there's that sort of a dual question of, have we got it there? How much is it, and do we need to talk about that as a committee before it comes back, perhaps linked to the working group project, but obviously that's something for this committee. The other query I've got is on the 4268, the grass verges. That is the cutting of the urban grass verges.
Sorry, on which page?
You're asking me now, I can't find it. But, I mean, it's in the report, sorry, I've just been flicking through finding it, because relating to Councillor Meek's point earlier, with the Climate Change Subcommittee, we have had discussions with various nature groups and so on about how we go about the urban grass, taking over that urban grass cutting contract. We've obviously had a year of doing what we're doing, we're going to another year of that, and then we're supposed to be looking at cut and collect, and I know we've had to pivot slightly in terms of those discussions, and also in terms of involvement. That's something which we're going to need to pick up now that we've got our new interim town clerk in place. But in terms of budget, just wondering if that specifically relates to the urban grass verges, and kind of flagging up that that may need further thought.
So on page 48 of the actual budget, it is actually showing that the grass verge is 46,25,000 £25,000, and that's the figure that I was given.
Yeah.
So we have increased that by another 5,000
Yeah.
because of all the changes that East Sussex would like us to include with the contract that we're carrying.
And that's the sort of geographical changes rather than the methodical changes. Okay, so that would then be for the next year. Okay, thanks.
There's not a cut, sorry, just that, there's not a cut and collect part of that, that's not a cut and collect.
Not at the moment,
No.
no.
Any Councillor Ruffin?
I would just like to commend all the officers for a very detailed, very easy to read report, of which there's obviously been clearly a large amount of work gone into. So thank you for all your hard work. Well done. It makes it very easy for us to actually read it and understand it. So we ask for more clarity. You're giving it to us. Thank you.
Second that as well. Right.
Good job.
If there are no more comments or questions, we're asked to comment on the draft committee budget 2025-26 and projected budgets up to 2030, and recommend its proposals to the finance and general purposes. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Rutland, do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, all those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Right, we are now moving to item 8, which is the exclusion of press and public. So in accordance with Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting during the discussion on the next item of business for the reasons set out below. The proper officer considers that the discussion on the following item is likely